Hi, everyone, and welcome to Reimagine Agriculture, the podcast where we explore the future of farming, food, and rural life across Europe through the eyes of the people shaping it. I'm Teresa Carvalho, and in this series, we'll meet people from across Europe who are reshaping the future of agriculture. Today, we're joined by Sophie Edner, board member at Mijarc Europe, an organization working to empower rural youth and ensure their voices are heard in shaping the future of agriculture and rural communities. Hi, Sophie.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. For our listeners who might not be familiar with Mijar, could you explain a bit more about its mission and the work you do with rural youth across Europe?
Yeah, of course. So, MIJARC means Mouvement International de la Jeunesse Agricole et Rurale Catholique. And it's a European youth organization with member organizations across Europe. We are involving rural youth organizations from different countries with different needs and challenges, and we bring them on the international level. In Europe, we are representing around 170,000 young people. We are connecting them all over Europe and mostly representing them from rural areas to give them a voice. So we are working together on topics about sustainable agriculture, rural development, youth participation, social justice, peace, and inclusion. Mijak is a non-formal learning platform that is created by rural youth, but as well for rural youth, and young people can exchange experiences and bring their local realities to the European level. And overall, our mission is not only to represent young people, but also to empower them to become active actors and change something in their communities.
Perfect. I mean, that's really impressive, especially how Mijar works across very different contexts, but it still manages to connect rural youth around shared priorities and challenges. It also gives us a sense of how youth organizations can act as a bridge between the local realities and the broader European discussions, including within frameworks like the CAP. So, Mijarc is known for its grassroots and participatory approach. How do young people concretely engage in your activities and in the decision making processes?
The highest decision body, is the General Assembly, where every member organization can attend with delegates and they have all the same voting rights. It means it doesn't matter how big or small the member organization is. And all our member organizations are the ones that are shaping the direction of the movement together. The board is only executive and developing projects, seminars, and activities, but all those directions and the topics were decided democratically together with all the member organizations. That's how we make sure that every voice is heard and people feel free to share their thoughts. And as well, we are meeting always in different countries. We're changing them to make it easier for everyone to attend the meetings, but as well to stay connected to different local realities and make participation there more inclusive. And beside that, statutory meetings, young people do not only participate as attendees, but they are also decision makers, facilitators, and organizers during our seminars or activities or commissions we are creating next to the board we have to support us.
So, this raises a broader question about how we think about young people in agriculture. They're not just future farmers or beneficiaries of policy, but they're also people who can actively shape the direction of the sector today. So, why is it so important that young people are not just included, but actively shaping the future of agriculture and rural areas?
Yeah, the young people are not only beneficiaries of future policies, they are the people, or actually, we are the people who will live their consequences the longest. If decisions about agriculture and rural life are made without young people, those decisions risk being disconnected from reality. So, young people can bring new ideas, new energy, and a long term perspective, which would be essential for sustainability and generational renewal to make it possible.
So that really shifts the perspective towards youth as co creators of change rather than passive recipients of decisions made elsewhere. And it also opens up a deeper question about the values that guide this kind of engagement. So, Mijark often frames its work in terms of social justice and inclusion. How do these values shape your approach to agriculture and rural development?
So, for us, agriculture is not only about production, but also about dignity, fairness, and valuing the work in agricultural fields. Social justice is about opportunities and access to fair income, but as well education, mobility, participation, and decent living conditions that are mostly not that present in rural areas as they are somewhere else. So, young people often move away from rural areas as they don't have enough opportunities and possibilities to shape their life as they would like to. And it's like the topic of social justice is as well about gender justice. It connects very well to the International Year of the Woman Farmer 2026, but it's as well about the importance of women in agriculture fields. They are often unrecognized, and lots of women face barriers in access to land, finance, services, and education. And at that time, inclusion means making sure that people who are often less heard are also part of the conversation, including young women, but as well small scale farmers and young people from more remote rural areas. It also means to have a look at the food system critically: who benefits, who is excluded, and whose labor is often invisible or not enough paid and struggling with financing their life.
I mean, this adds an important layer to the conversation because it shows that agriculture is not just about production or efficiency, but it's also about fairness: who has access to land, the opportunities, a viable livelihood in rural areas. And it also explains why youth engagement, it's not just a technical issue, but it's also a social and a political issue. To make this more concrete, it would also be great to hear how these ideas play out in practice. Could you share examples of how young people in your network are already driving change in their communities or in food systems?
Yes, of course. It depends a bit on the different member organizations and the different countries they are coming from. But for example, the member organizations are trying to buy for their summer camps or activities or seminars they're doing themselves, mostly local and seasonal food. They are trying to buy it as regional as possible and to make sure that local farmers are supported and not big businesses. They are buying their products instead of the industrial ones. Sometimes they are trying to connect young farmers to get their products as well, for example, all over the country to really support them at the end of the day. As well, they're trying not to only support local businesses, but they're trying to buy as well products without abuse of human rights. For example, if we're talking about water capacities and water use that is taken from rural communities or from people in general. So we are trying to educate the young people in rural areas about it and to tell them why is it important and why is it a good thing to avoid buying those products. Beside that, we are in general trying to educate young people about food system during the seminars and activities we're doing. And for the German member organization, for example, they are also trying to search for houses that are fulfilling the sustainable requirements they have set for their meetings and trying to adjust it as much as possible.
So, this shows that change is already happening, not just at a policy level, but also in everyday practices and local initiatives. At the same time, these stories often exist alongside significant challenges that young people continue to face. Mijark focuses specifically on young people in rural areas. What are the main challenges they face today in agriculture and in rural life?
Yeah, so one major challenge is access to decent jobs and education in rural areas. But many young people also face limited transport, weaker digital, fewer services, less access to healthcare, and sometimes kind of social isolation, depending on how rural the areas are. For those who want to enter agriculture, the sector is very capital intensive. So the motivation alone to work in that sector is not enough without structural support. And even then, it's very challenging to start a business in the agricultural fields. Another challenge is recognition. So young people often have ideas or expertise, but they are still not always taken seriously in political or agricultural decision making processes and as well in the decision at the end of the day. So, especially on the countryside, when it comes again to women, they're also facing additional layers of barriers that are visible as well in the rural life and in the rural life of young people, especially young women.
So, this also brings us closer to the question of how these realities are reflected, or sometimes not reflected, in policy frameworks at the European level, including the CAP and rural development strategies. How does MIJARC engage with EU policymaking processes, particularly when it comes to representing youth perspectives?
So, in general, by our activities, our seminars, we're often creating policy documents for MIJARC, like MIJARC policy documents in different topics. That means that we are having like one vision, one voice we want to represent from all our member organizations and the young people behind there. So, for example, last year we did a policy document about peace and how youth sees peace in general and how peace can become closer to reality than it is in the world. Beside that, we also use different networks and other organizations like YF, which is the European Youth Forum, where organizations across Europe are coming together. There, we are educating for advocating for different needs of our member organizations, but as well about rural youth or the rural Catholic youth in general. So we are co-signing there. We are supporting motions that are relevant for us. We're getting involved in the discussions, and we make sure that the policies they are making are in line with our needs as well, because at the end of the day, the European Youth Forum is taking their policies as well to the European level and to the EU policy making processes. Beside that, we are also taking part in consultations, filling surveys, stuff like that, mostly with the European Youth Forum together, trying to make our impact higher and bigger while working together with other European organizations.
So, this is a key part of your work because it shows how grassroots experiences are translated into policy spaces at EU level, where decisions about agriculture and rural development are made. The CAP includes measures aimed at supporting young farmers in rural areas. How well do these reflect the realities of the young people that you work with?
So the instruments they are already mentioned in CAP are sometimes useful instruments, for example, income support, startup aid, investment support, especially for young farmers. That are things that are already good and helping young people to connect to the agricultural sector and to work in it and really make it possible. But the support on paper is one thing, but it does not automatically solve the deeper issues. Being able to have a sustainable business with a stable income and without that high administrative complexity, that is something that is still an issue that should be solved. And without the CAP, the agricultural sector would face even more difficulties, but still it does not fully reflect how complex and challenging working in the agriculture fields is today. And young farmers are still struggling and worrying about their future as the income is not enough to live and to build a stable business with, especially compared to what they are putting inside and how much they are working for it.
So, this is particularly relevant in the context of ongoing discussions about the future of CAP and its role in supporting generational renewal, rural development, and long term territorial cohesion across Europe. It also speaks to a broader challenge, ensuring that policies designed at EU level are flexible and inclusive enough to respond to very different rural realities. How can EU policy better address economic, social, and structural barriers facing young people in rural areas?
In the first place, policy needs to be designed with rural youth and not only for rural youth. That means including the thoughts of young people from rural communities, taking them seriously and their needs by surveys, or having a youth council that is working together with EU policymakers. That are things that would be possible. That means not only consultation, but also follow up and concrete measures, as well as fair prices, digital infrastructure, and education. So, in that way, policy should also be better connected to the agricultural policy in regards of gender equality, because the future of rural areas depends strongly on everyone. And there are all genders required at the end of the day. And there is often, especially in rural areas, a lack of gender justice and gender equality.
I mean, this highlights the importance of thinking about agriculture not just as a sector, but as part of a wider rural system that needs to be sustainable and inclusive and future oriented. Looking ahead, what gives you hope when you think about the future of rural youth and agriculture in Europe?
For me, the most important point is that we are not fighting alone and we are not there alone. What gives me hope is that young people are already acting, organizing, and creating rural communities. And it is also encouraging that there is growing recognition internationally that agriculture needs generational renewal, and especially that women farmers need more visibility, recognition, and support. But yeah, that's something where we can already see some small changes, and the actions and corporations that are still existing that are showing that we can raise our voice and that young people keep up showing despite the difficulties. And that's really something that is creating hope.
Thank you so much, Sophie, for joining us today. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Reimagine Agriculture, part of the Recap Project, where we bring forward the voices helping to shape a more sustainable, inclusive, and community driven future for European farming. See you in the next episode.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.